Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Alright, I'm Kelsey Stucky. It is December 26th, and this is my interview with Nancy Schroeder. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Hopefully we get it this time. Okay, when and where were you born?
I was born on September 13th, 1935 in Reno County, Kansas.
Okay. When you were my age, where were you living?
In the same house that I was born in.
Okay. And who lived in that house with you?
At that time,
Right.
my mother and my father and my older brother and older sister.
Okay. And then you had more siblings later, right?
3 more sisters.
Okay. Can you describe the house that you lived in?
It was built the same year I was born, and they moved into it shortly before I was born. It was across the road. We didn't have streets from my grandmother's house. And they had lived in with my grandmother before that.
Okay.
And it was a large house with 3 bedrooms downstairs, a dining room, a living room, a sunroom where my mother had her sewing machine, and a hallway and 3 bedrooms, did I say that? And a bathroom downstairs, and then a full basement downstairs
Okay.
with a generator. So we had 32-volt electricity, which was a good big thing in those days, since that was before most rural people had electricity.
Right. Okay. What did your parents do for a living?
My father was a farmer. My mother was a farm wife.
Okay. Can you tell me about school when you were my age? What kind of classes you had?
Yes, it was a rural high school at Langdon High School, and we had algebra and geometry, and some of them had trigonometry, not me. There was a home ec class for the girls, and shop classes for the boys,
Okay.
where they made furniture and such, and we made dresses and such. Starting off with aprons, I believe. And then we had American history and English literature, music,
Did
and
you-
band if you played an instrument. I
You
didn't,
didn't finish?
but I did do the twirling sometime one year.
And did you do like vocal or anything?
I know I haven't got talent for vocals.
Okay. And then how did
They
you
had
get
it
to
though, for
school?
once it did.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you get to school?
Oh, we had a school bus that picked us up in the morning and brought us home at night, and it also picked up other farm children. We were about 8 miles from the school. So it was it took about an hour probably to get around all
Wow.
the farms and get to school.
Okay.
Both ways. So we wasted a couple hours that way. Although sometimes it was entertaining.
Okay.
One time the bus driver went off and left us, and he was there early. So the next morning I was terribly embarrassed. But my mother marched out to the bus and proceeded to tell him that we were on time and he was early and that he shouldn't ever do that again. And he backed down completely. Now I'm kind of proud of her. At the time I was embarrassed to death.
That's funny. Okay. What was your daily life like? Did you have chores that you did?
We did have some chores. We gathered eggs and fed the chickens.
Okay.
Saw that they had water. We usually had a pig or 2 just for our own use, and we had milk cows. My dad did the milking.
Okay.
We just had 2 or 3. Mostly my dad was a wheat farmer, but we just had these things for our own. We had a big garden and stuff for our own use.
Okay.
We had horses to ride.
Okay. What kind of foods did you eat?
Just ordinary food, but it was real food. We didn't have any. Our fast food wasn't McDonald's. It was chicken. And my mother would, or she'd send one of us out to catch the chickens. Have you ever seen a chicken hook? It's
No.
a long wire with a hook on the end, and you catch them by the leg. Anyway, she would decapitate the chickens, and we would dip them in scalding water and pluck out the feathers.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't that sound like fun?
No, that does not sound like fun.
It wasn't that bad. We were used to it. And then we would cut them up, and she would fry them, and it tasted good. Mashed potatoes and gravy and all that kind of stuff. My Aunt Viola made homemade bread, but my mom usually didn't. And when her kids had come to our house, they enjoyed the store-bought bread. But we loved my Aunt Viola's homemade bread.
So that was kind of a treat to have store-bought bread?
Oh, well, not to us. We had it all the time, but to them.
Because that's definitely the opposite now.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. What did you guys do for fun when you were my age?
In the winter, we went ice skating, and we played in the snow, and it seemed like we had more snows then. And we entertained ourselves with our drawing and talking and or telling stories and that sort of thing. We put on plays and directed them ourselves, costumes and all. And we had circuses in the summer. We had a trapeze, and we had use the top of a gate of a long gate for our tightrope, and we'd walk across that. You had to be pretty brave.
Wow.
It took a few times to learn how. It was about maybe 4 feet off the ground, 4 or 5.
That's a very good balance.
Mm-hmm. We did learn balance.
Sounds dangerous.
And we had a favorite tree that we always climbed, and there was a jumping off place. I guess it's where my dad had cut off a big limb at one time. Probably it was broken or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the place where we had to jump off. My brother insisted that we do it, and we did, even if we were afraid.
Okay, what kind of clothing did you wear?
Oh, you're wondering about the blue jeans and the bobby socks. We did wear those on Friday, and mostly on Fridays we wore jeans. And we'd roll up a couple of rolls, and the boys did that too sometimes.
Okay.
And then we'd have bobby socks that we'd turn down a little. So. And we wore saddle shoes. I don't think you know what those are, but
no.
They're kind of like a white Oxford with a saddle across the instep that was either brown or black or red.
And what did you wear when you didn't wear jeans? Like on Fridays?
We wore
wore jeans, but
skirts and blouses mostly, and a sweater over your shoulders sometimes if it was cool enough, and plaid skirt, wool in the winter maybe, or something plaid in the winter, but in the summer they were lighter cotton ones that my mom made.
Have you seen any of those trends come back?
We wore ponytails in our hair, and I see a ponytail across from me.
Yeah?
Yeah, we wore those. And the jeans, of course, they've never gone out.
Right.
You wear them more than we did, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one ever wore jeans to church. To church, we sometimes wore gloves and hats, even in the summer.
Okay.
My mom did, and sometimes we did too, like on Easter or something if we felt like dressing up.
Okay.
Or our mom felt like dressing us up.
That's more like it. What was some of the popular music of your time?
Let's see, we had Elvis Presley and Pat Boone, Frankie Lane. I can't remember all of them.
Okay. What did you do when you went out on dates and stuff?
You don't want to know everything, do you?
Grandma!
No, we usually went to a movie.
Okay.
And over at Turin, that was a nearby town that had a movie house. And we then would have a Coke sometimes afterwards, or a malt or something at the drugstore.
Okay.
Drugstore had a pharmacy in it, and it also had a doctor's office in the back with a real doctor.
Oh.
Sometimes the doctor would come out to the farm to visit. If it was an emergency, like when my brother had an appendectomy, he would come out to the farm. He didn't actually do the surgery out there. I think probably in the earlier days they did, but no, he went to a hospital in Hutch for the surgery.
Okay.
But he did come out and visit him before.
Okay. And So he did make house visits?
He did make
sometimes.
house calls, and he would come out and deliver babies too.
Okay.
I think most of my siblings were, and I was born on the farm.
Okay.
Except for my youngest sister. She was born in the hospital at King.
Okay. Were there any popular movies you remember seeing, or movie stars, or?
Yes, there were lots of them. Let's see, Gone with the Wind and From Here to Eternity. There were lots of good movies in those days, or at least we thought they were. I can't think of all of them, though. There was Doris Day and Ava Gardner and Elizabeth Taylor. You're thinking of and Clark Gable, and you don't know any of these people, do you?
I do. I have
some
seen Gone with the Wind. I have seen
Yeah.
some things. I know some of these people. Okay. Who was president when you were my age?
Well, I've got to think, and it's either Truman or Eisenhower.
Okay.
I think probably Eisenhower. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to check it for sure. I don't know what years.
Okay.
I'm not good on I did learn American history, but it was further back than that.
What did you know about the Korean War?
We knew about the Korean conflict because there was a draft at that time, and the young men were drafted, the boys, shortly after they graduated from high school, I guess when they turned 18. A lot of them joined the Naval Reserve or the National Guard or something.
Okay.
Even before that, and trained on weekends and such.
So you knew people who were serving?
I did know people who went.
Okay.
One of my cousins did.
Okay, cousin. What about, like, telephones and things? Did you have?
We had one telephone in the hallway for all of us, and it was a crank telephone. You cranked it, and you would crank it 3 long cranks and a short crank for somebody's, or maybe 2 cranks or whatever,
Right.
for different people's numbers. And it was a party line, so most of the neighbors were on it. All of our neighbors were, and you could listen in. There was an emergency signal, which was just, I think they just kept cranking it for a long time so that everybody would know that there was a fire somewhere or something that we should know about.
Right.
Or maybe they did that. I don't know. They might have done that at the end of World War II. I don't actually remember it. But anything that was national. But usually the news was just local on the telephone. We didn't get many international
So
calls.
how'd you get, like, your world news? Because that was the local.
Was mostly radio or newspaper, or my dad took some news magazines.
Okay.
Life and Time and U.S. News and World Report, I remember.
Okay. What about, like, TVs? You didn't have TVs at all?
We didn't. We did have Saturday Evening Post and McCall's and Ladies' Home Journal in those days.
Okay.
We had a piano, and at one time they tried to teach 2 of us to play violin. It didn't take.
None of you? No?
It didn't. But some of them did turn into piano players.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was more successful.
Okay, what did you know about the interstate highway system?
I think that was started during the Eisenhower administration. I don't recall a great deal about it. I know we used to go to Hutchinson a different way than we do now.
Okay.
Because this highway that goes across, Highway 61, is diagonal through Arlington. That was put in later.
How is life different for you than for teenagers today?
We had more free time, and we didn't have as many lessons and ball games and activities.
Okay.
And we had no computers and no cell phones and no Blackberries, whatever. Well, if we had Blackberries, they were the real fruit.
Okay. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen through your lifetime?
The communication and traveling. The world seems to be much smaller because our travel so much faster now by plane or by car.
Right.
Than we did in those days. And we were more isolated.
Okay. Is there some advice you would give to a teenager today?
I wish that the teenagers today could have a little more free time and not have to work or have an activity every single minute, so they'd have more time to be creative and do their own thing.
Okay. I forgot to ask you about like washing your clothes and things like that.
Okay. Well, the way we did that was with a Ringer Maytag washer in the basement.
Okay.
I didn't mention it was a Maytag before, did I? But anyway, you could you dipped your clothes out and run them through the wringer till they were wrung dry.
Mm-hmm.
Not really dry, but drier than they were soaking wet. And you'd pop them into baskets and carry them upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
and hang them on the clothesline to dry.
Okay.
If the weather was bad, we did have some lines in the basement where we could hang them to dry also.
Okay.
Every Monday, Mama would wash.
Every Monday.
Would wash clothes. There was usually plenty of clothes for all of us.
I believe
She
it.
did a lot of ironing. She ironed everything.
Okay. Is there any story or anything that you would like to share?
Well, on Christmas Eve, we would always have oyster stew.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they started. I think at one time they had fresh oysters that came in on the railroad,
Mm-hmm.
and these were from wherever they raise oysters, wherever they gather oysters, I should say. And they would ship them by boxcar into Penalosa, and my grandparents or great-grandparents at that time, grandparents I think, would get those, and they would make this oyster stew for Christmas Eve because it was easy, and the big dinner was the next day on Christmas. And so it became a custom in our family to always have oyster stew on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And one year when I was eating, we had canned oysters at that time, but we didn't use the fresh ones so much. I think occasionally they did, but they didn't come by boxcar. We got them at Dillon's. But anyway, I found a pearl in my oyster, and that was the same year that my fiance gave me a pearl necklace for Christmas.
That was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me interview you.
You're welcome.
And cut.
Cut? Okay.